minutes. And Joe, on the record, let me start by just asking to give us a feel for the Senate race, because everything I've read and heard from commentators like Terry Madonna and those kind of people, this Pennsylvania race that you're in is really one of the key races to watch in the United States, is it not?
Without a question, and for two reasons. The first is most important. That is that the people of Pennsylvania need a warrior in the Senate for them. They don't have that. Someone who's willing to lose it all for them, like a captain of a ship where I was served 31 years, that if the ship goes aground or the crew comes to harm, you're relieved for cause. Someone who's there and accountable to them. And the second point is this, that in restoring that American dream for Pennsylvanians, you know what? This Senate race will actually determine which is the party that is going to be able to determine, for example, the next Supreme Court justice. Because unfortunately, because the Senate is so broken that almost everything, even a presidential election at one time, goes to the Supreme Court. And being able to have wise people on that is going to be one of the more important determinants and outcomes of actually who do you have as your senator from Pennsylvania.
Jay, is it your hope or your wish that people really look at the candidates as opposed to saying, well, all right, we've got a Republican, we should have a Democrat in there, we need two Democrats, we need two Republicans, or do you think that will not be a factor?
I want people, and I hope that people, and I believe that the people of Pennsylvania will look at the person, regardless of party. I really do, and that's why the most important reason I said is a warrior for people. When I held up my combat boots that I'd worn on the ground in Afghanistan, when I headed the Navy's anti-terrorism unit for a very short mission, I held them up and said, I am now going to walk 422 miles across Pennsylvania to show Pennsylvanians that I will walk in their shoes, that it's not about party, it is not about type, it is about people. And I want to be, first and foremost, a senator who will walk in the shoes of the people, not my party first, but people. Because, parties have let us down. All they are is about the other party must lose so one might win. No, it is about the people winning, and we have lost that in politics.
Joe, one of the best ways, in fact, the best way to find out what's going on is go door to door. Of course, statewide, that's tough to do, but you walked, you were talking about the working families. What are you taking from those one-on-one meetings?
It is that people want to believe again, and they can't. They feel that both parties' leadership have let them down. That, you know what, you're a Democrat, therefore you're just going to be opposed to everything the Republican says. You're a Republican, so you're going to be opposed to everything Democratic do. What I found out that when I was a congressman, a Democrat representing a Republican district, that we kept our office open 7 days a week, up until 9 o'clock every night. We rotated interns under my staff so that we took care of people, not just Democrats, not just Republicans, not just into everybody. And in my second race, even though it was 56% Republican in my district, 35% Democrat, we won by 20 points and spent no money on advertising, just put up some yard signs, because people just wanted to believe, and people can. As I do these events, it's exactly what comes out. They'll ask me, what do I think about health care? What do I think about education? But I walk through logic of why I believe this is a way to make it work. And then I say, what do you think? Can I hear what you have to say about what I just mentioned? They love that interchange. That, more than anything, is what I get from my walks throughout Pennsylvania.
Let me ask you, because I know you touched on health care, and I know that's one of your big concerns. Is the whole system broken? Are we somewhere halfway in between, or where are we going on this?
We're about halfway in between towards a much better system, and much more to be done. For example, the good things we've done is that someone like my daughter who had brain cancer at 4 years old. I was an independent in the Navy, 31 years, come back from the war. I was gone for a year. She got brain cancer. Only 8% of kids have survived. I got out and I ran for health care for everybody in 2006 to pay back my country for taking care of my daughter from our health care plan. But now she cannot be denied care for a pre-existing condition. She can switch between jobs. She's only 14 now, but when she does, without worrying about losing her health care plan. Those are good things, but here's what has to stop. We should not be hurting small businesses by mandating that you have a 50th employee, then you've got to provide health care. And so they're hiring part-time employees. That wasn't in the House bill. The Senate stuck that in. Second thing is Medicare. Medicare cannot negotiate for best price with pharmaceuticals. VA can. When as a vet, if I go to the VA to get a medicine, it can cost half to one-third the price if you get it at Medicare, because the VA can negotiate best price. We lose $123 billion in the next 8 years because Medicare is forbidden by law to negotiate for best prices. So there's much more to be done to save it, to make sure that the cost of medical care can go down.
Joe, as you well know, Pennsylvania, Florida, we're 1-2 for senior citizens. And one of the things I was talking about while you were talking about health care is also a concern about Social Security. I'm sure that always comes up when you talk to the seniors. Is the system okay? Are we heading the wrong direction, right direction, or what?
Well, first off, I wanted a lockbox for any money that goes into Social Security set aside. The government hasn't done that for decades. It's wrong. But number two is about 2030, Social Security will be taking in less than it's giving out, and it starts heading towards insolvency. Now, the Affordable Care Act made Medicare solvent. It was going to run out next year. We made it solvent to 2030. So that's why I brought up Medicare and the cost of the drugs. But for Social Security, here's the problem. The great compromise between Ronald Reagan, who did very good in this, and the majority of the party time Democrats back in 1983-ish time frame was that 86% of all, I think it was 92% of all wages would be covered. I might be off by a percentage or two. And it kept it solvent up until 2030. Well, what's happened, unfortunately, is as all the income, wages, so to speak, as you well know, the great divide has happened on wages have stagnated. Most of the increase of all that money has gone to the top 6% of people in America. So now only about 85% of wages are covered, and that's why we're slowly going to be running out of money. Now, there's different ways to handle this, but it doesn't have to be by a decrease in benefits. It doesn't have to be by soaking the middle class. We all know where that money left from and where it went. And so we need a better, more smart way to make sure that the hard-working people, the middle class, are not affected by keeping it solvent, and that can be done.
Joe, there's a lot of things I could ask you about. I don't want to keep you real long. One of the things, as far as a current event, just as a Navy man, your take on our sailors on the deck the other day with their hands up behind their heads and, after sailing, apparently, obviously by mistake, into Iran's waters.
Yes. There's not a question that the Iranians took some advantage, absolutely took advantage of a propaganda by putting some of those out. But I also know I've operated in these waters, captain of admiral of an aircraft carrier battle group there, captain of a small ship. And if an Iranian warship, North Korean small riverboat with guns on it, drifted into our territorial waters, which we own, like ours went into their waters, I would not have let my men at all go on board those ships once they were in our waters, and we didn't know why they were there, without making sure that they were standing at the end of the boat, their hands up in the air, so I could protect my sailors, not knowing what would happen, particularly in a terrorist type of situation. My gosh, I used to go out with my sailors. I used to go out with them in that same type of craft that our sailors were on, that Persian Gulf that went into Iranian territorial waters. I had to walk up with my troops because I wanted to know I'd go with them. 30-foot high rope ladders up the hull of a merchant ship, civilian merchant ship, so we could go in and inspect to see if there's contraband that they were trying to smuggle into Iraq. But all the crew were put at the end of the ship with a helicopter over them, looking down safely if we needed to use a gun or anything as we climbed up. And we had them in our views with men with guns standing behind them, because out there you don't know what's going to happen. And so do I understand that we went in their waters? Yep. Did I understand that they took advantage? Maybe we could have been standing with the hands in the head safely or something. Sure. But they did what we probably would have done to some extent. To be safety, our people were taken care of. Now, the key is we had a hotline where John Kerry could pick it up, Secretary of State, and call the Iranians and said, let's resolve this now. When the British sailors were captured in 2007, it took 2 weeks to get them out. And so being able to have communications because of the Iranian Accord we had of denuking them, taking those nuclear weapons out of their capability out of their country, had led to, I think, a quick resolution of this.
Okay, Joe, I'm going to stop because I mean we could, like I said, we could go on